It's 7 o'clock. This is Sky News Breakfast. These are our top stories this morning. A viable alternative to quarantine. The government-backed study trials daily tests as a substitute for self-isolation for those who've come into contact with a positive COVID case. I want to be carefree. Sky News speaks to the sickle cell warrior, determined to raise awareness of the disease.
Sometimes I can be looking forward to something like having a sleepover or going to watch a movie, and then all of that can change with a second, and then I can end up in hospital.
Preparing for the polls, Sky's Sophy Ridge takes a look at which way Wales may vote come elections later this week. And Portrait of a Princess. A new photograph is released by Kensington Palace to celebrate Princess Charlotte's 6th birthday. In the sport, Manchester City could seal the Premier League title today if rivals Manchester United lose to Liverpool.
And it's a sunny and showery Sunday and a wet and windy bank holiday Monday. Typical conditions for a bank holiday weekend. I'll have details for you later in the programme.
And at 2:15, we'll take a look at the newspapers with the journalist and feminist campaigner Julie Bindel and the writer and political commentator Esther Crackle. Good morning. Welcome to Sky News Breakfast. Thank you for joining us. People who come into close contact with someone with COVID may not need to self-isolate anymore if a new trial proves to be successful. Daily lateral flow tests will be given to as many as 40,000 people who have a positive coronavirus contact in the government-backed research. So long as they stay negative all week, they can carry on with their lives without having to isolate. Well, Emma Birchley joins me now from the newsroom. And Emma, when does this all start and how exactly is it going to be implemented?
So it all starts next Sunday. And if it turns out that you have been in close contact with someone who's tested positive for coronavirus, then you could well get a call and be offered the chance to take part in the study. You'll then be sent 7 lateral flow tests. You have one each morning, and as long as the result is negative and you're not displaying any symptoms, then you can carry on with life as normal. And we know that those results come through in about 30 minutes. So it's all about trying to get back to some kind of normality, people not needing to self-isolate at home for 10 days, which causes so much disruption, has such an impact on working lives, social lives, and also, of course, the knock-on of that on the economy. Now, pilots have already been carried out in hospitals, businesses, some schools, and this will build on that. There is, of course, some concern about the accuracy of these lateral flow tests, but actually there's 1 in 1,000 false positives, and to make sure that people get the accurate result, they will then go on, if they've had a positive, to have a PCR test, which is seen as being more accurate, just to make sure that the results are right. This is a study that's being led by Public Health England and by NHS Test and Trace, and it's being backed by the government. Everyone hoping that it will work to try and reduce the need for people to self-isolate at home. And as I said, it will begin next Sunday.
Emma, thank you. And we'll be joined by the lead author of that study, Professor Isabel Oliver, in about 10 minutes' time, so do stay with us for that. Let's have a look at the latest coronavirus figures now for the UK. There have been 1,907 new cases of coronavirus, while 7 more deaths have been reported. It means the total number of people who've died due to the virus is 127,524. Meanwhile, another 129,657 people have received their first vaccination and 405,456 people got their second. That means more than 34.3 million jabs have now been given out across the UK. An 11-year-old girl who has sickle cell anemia says more support is needed for people living with the disease. Mia Phillip is calling for greater awareness of the hereditary illness following the death of 19-year-old student Richard Okorogeye, who went missing after spending a year shielding because of his condition. While an inquest early this month found that another sickle cell sufferer, Evan Nathan Smith, who rang 999 from his hospital bed after being refused oxygen, wouldn't have died if medical staff had recognised his symptoms and offered him a blood transfusion sooner. Shingi Mararike reports.
So, what we think? So, I really like this. I think it goes good in the light.
On the surface, Maya is like any other 11-year-old girl with hopes, dreams and aspirations. A natural-born performer, she is already well on her way to becoming an actress. Away from performing, however, real life can be tough. Every single day, she deals with sickle cell. The hereditary disease is caused by abnormally shaped red blood cells creating blockages in the bloodstream. These result in extreme episodes of pain known as crises. They can last hours, days, or months. The condition can even be fatal.
If I get too excited about something, that can also trigger a crisis. So I always have to be level, like, okay, I'm very excited, but I have to stay calm. But yeah, sometimes I can be looking forward to something like having a sleepover or going to watch a movie, and then all of that can change with a second, and then I can end up in hospital on a blood transfusion. Or it's frustrating because sometimes you feel like you just want to be able to live, to be carefree.
She did ask, why do I have sickle cell? She said, why did God give me sickle cell? And if I'm being honest, I wasn't ready for that question.
This is where I keep all my medicines.
Around 15,000 people in Britain suffer from sickle cell. The majority are from African Caribbean backgrounds. It has been thrust into the limelight by a recent tragedy.
Oh, look at you. Oh my God, you're glowing.
The death of Richard Okorogeye, a 19-year-old student found dead last month after he had spent a year shielding with the illness before going missing.
I don't have any connections with either of the parents, but I cried. I felt their pain.
This might, probably not, but it might happen to me.
This mother and daughter have become activists, fighting to raise awareness.
This is my water chart.
For them, a wider understanding of sickle cell needs to begin with the medical profession.
To know about diabetes or to even know about cystic fibrosis, it should be as standard as that. It shouldn't be, oh, I haven't heard of this before, or oh, I don't know what that is. You have been in this profession, so know about this profession, know about every single thing in this profession that you can.
For Maya, who calls herself a sickle cell warrior, the message to others is a simple one.
I know it's hard sometimes, but just continue doing what you do. Make sure you look after yourself as well, especially, now, definitely.
Shingi Mararike, Sky News.
Let's take a look now at some of the other stories making the news for you this morning. And North Korea has dismissed the idea of talks with Washington, calling US diplomacy efforts spurious and a way to cover up its hostile acts. In Joe Biden's first policy speech as president to Congress on Wednesday, he reaffirmed his commitment to denuclearization. But in a series of statements, the North Korean Foreign Ministry said the speech was intolerable and a big blunder. Israel is holding a national day of mourning after a deadly stampede killed 45 ultra-Orthodox Jews at Friday's Lag B'Omer festival near Mount Meron. The bodies of 32 of the worshippers have been identified, but the process was suspended to allow for Sabbath, the Jewish day of rest. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised an investigation into the cause of the stampede. 4 children have been hospitalised after eating sweets thought to contain cannabis. 2 12-year-olds and a 13-year-old were found on Pound Lane in Epsom after suffering a violent reaction to the sweets. Anybody who has found what appear to be similar sweets is urged not to destroy them and to contact Surrey Police. Caitlyn Jenner has said that transgender athletes who were born male should not be allowed to compete in girls' sports teams. During what appeared to be an impromptu interview, she told American website TMZ it was a question of fairness. The former Olympic decathlon medalist and reality TV star came out as transgender in 2015. Jenner recently announced she would run for California governor as a Republican. The prospect of Wales becoming an independent country used to be very much a side issue in Welsh elections, with health, education and the economy dominating the doorstep debate. These days, the idea of breaking away from the union is a key topic of the campaign. Ahead of polls opening on Thursday, Sophy Ridge has been to Wales to see what voters really care about.
The last time people in Wales voted for their devolved parliament, David Cameron was Prime Minister, Brexit hadn't happened, and COVID-19 didn't even exist. Since 2016, it's fair to say a lot has changed. But will that be reflected in next Thursday's elections? First Minister Mark Drakeford is keen to capitalise on his record dealing with the pandemic, but some say that Labour's approach in this campaign has been too modest.
Well, I think we belong in the middle because that is where the great bulk of opinion rests in Wales. It is only the Labour Party that believes in a strong Wales, in a successful United Kingdom.
In the last 4 years, the Conservatives have gained ground in Wales. In the 2019 general election, they won 6 Welsh seats off Labour. Now, Labour needs to win back some of those votes, just to maintain their current standing in the Welsh Parliament.
To match our 2016 election result, particularly in the current circumstances, I think would be a very high watermark for us.
Because of the gains they made in 2019, the Conservatives should be improving on their 2016 result. Anything less would be a failure.
We're fighting every constituency and every regional ballot. We're getting a very good response indeed. It's all about building on 2019, I accept that, and that's why our strong economic roadmap out of the COVID crisis is an important part of our platform.
But this election is a 3-horse race. Plaid Cymru may hold the balance of power, hoping to capitalise on a small growth in support for Welsh independence.
Support is increasing. Indeed, according to some opinion polls, now even a majority of Labour voters support independence. And support for independence in Wales now is higher than it was in Scotland 10 years ago. And of course, only a few years later, they came within 5% of winning an independence referendum. And politics is all about momentum, and the momentum is with the independence movement.
Plaid Cymru and Labour have worked together in the past. Could another coalition be on the cards?
We're not prepared to concede any other possibility than surging support, not just for the independence movement, but for Plaid Cymru.
Plaid clearly don't want to talk about possible coalitions just yet, but they might have to soon. This is an election full of uncertainty, with 7 UKIP seats up for grabs and 16 and 17-year-olds voting for the first time in Wales. And if the result is inconclusive, which it may well be, that uncertainty could continue for some time after as well. Sophy Ridge, Sky News.
And a reminder that Dominic Raab will be live on Sophy Ridge on Sunday. She'll also be joined by Shadow Foreign Secretary Lisa Nandy. That's at 8:30 this morning. Let's take a look now at some of the other stories making the news for you this morning. And police are searching for a newborn baby girl after her parents failed to cooperate with doctors who said she needed urgent medical help. Zara and Michelle Graham from South London haven't been seen since a postnatal assessment with their daughter on Thursday. Detectives say the 7-day-old, who's been identified as baby Graham, needs urgent treatment for what could be a serious respiratory condition. The UK economy is ready for liftoff as the country emerges from the latest lockdown, according to the Confederation of British Industry. It's predicting economic growth will be felt differently across sectors, though most industries will grow strongly in the next 3 months. Oscar-winning actress Olympia Dukakis, best known for her role in the 1987 romantic comedy Moonstruck, has died aged 89. Her brother, Apollo Dukakis, announced the news on Facebook, saying beloved sister Olympia Dukakis passed away this morning in New York City. A SpaceX capsule carrying 4 astronauts has departed the International Space Station, ending their 5-month mission. The astronauts set a record for the longest time in space by a crew that launched aboard an American-built spacecraft. Crew members are also aiming for a rare nighttime splashdown. A new photograph of Princess Charlotte has been released to mark her 6th birthday today. Kensington Palace said the image was captured this weekend in Norfolk by her mother, the Duchess of Cambridge. Let's get more on our top story now. And self-isolating could soon be a thing of the past if a new trial of daily lateral flow tests for those who've come into contact with someone with COVID proves successful. The research is being led by Public Health England, and I'm joined now by Professor Isabel Oliver, who is heading up the study. Good morning to you. Just how long will the trials go on for, and what exactly will they entail?
Thank you very much and good morning. The trial will go on until we are able to recruit sufficient people to the study to help us evaluate the daily contact testing as a safe alternative to self-isolation. The study entails on what we will do as part of the study is offer contacts of cases of COVID-19 the opportunity to participate, and as part of that we will randomly allocate them to two groups. One group which will be the standard normal approach, including the requirement to self-isolate for 10 days. And then the second group will be offered the opportunity of taking a daily test. And if that test is negative, they will be released from the requirement to isolate for the following 24 hours when they will be required to take another test. And they'll do that for 7 days.
And what is the aim or the potential aim? Is it to reduce the days that people have to self-isolate, or is it to eradicate self-isolation altogether?
Well, we know that contacts of cases are at higher risk of carrying the infection. So one of the key aims is to make sure that we identify people who are carrying the infection among contacts of cases, and that we do that quickly. The second aim is that we do know that people, particularly some people, find self-isolation very challenging. For example, people who are not able to work from home, or people who have a lack of access to support, for example. So the aim would be to release people who are not carrying the infection from the need to isolate. Of course, all people testing positive will still be required to isolate as normal.
And are you happy with the reliability of the lateral flow test? Because there has been some criticism that it's not as precise as the PCR test.
That's right. So we know that these tests are accurate and sufficiently sensitive to be used among asymptomatic people. We're actually building on experience of previous studies. And although it is true that in situations such as the situation where we are at the moment, where the prevalence of infection is low, we do know that it is possible that some people might test positive when they are not carrying the infection, but that is still rare. The tests are highly accurate, and we have undertaken studies previously where offering these tests to contacts of cases, they have found to be very accurate. And the correlation of these tests with PCR tests has been found to be very high. We will, of course, as part of the study, also be asking people to take 2 PCR tests. And everybody who tests positive with a lateral flow device as part of this study will also be asked to take a confirmatory PCR test.
It does rely on trusting people, because they have to self-test, and you have to rely on people actually carrying out the tests properly themselves. Are you confident that that would be the case routinely?
Well, as I said, trust is really important, and trust is key to our public health response. People will be required to submit evidence of their daily test every day. They will be sent a reminder, and of course, if they do not submit their test, they will still be required by law to isolate. So if they do not take the daily test, they will have to isolate.
Now, as we know, the vaccination programme thus far has been hailed a huge success, and we read in the papers this morning that vaccinations are to begin in secondary schools from September. What can you tell us about that?
Well, as you say, vaccination has been a wonderful success. It is fantastic to see the evidence of the protection that the vaccination program is providing. And I would recommend everybody to take up the offer of vaccination. It's really the best weapon that we have against this deadly virus.
But can you confirm that that will be starting in secondary schools come September?
I'm not able to confirm that. I'm here to talk about this study, particularly not about the details of the vaccination program. But as you know, the government is committed to rolling out the vaccination program to the whole population as quickly as possible.
OK, Professor Isabel Oliver, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
OK, let's take a look at the weather for you now with Naz. Is it a little bit warmer today?
Yeah, slightly warmer, but basically the same as the last few days. I'm beginning to sound like a broken record. Again, we are looking at sunshine and showers for this bank holiday Sunday. Sunday. Bank holiday Monday is looking wet and windy. I need to have a coffee.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. So it's a showery picture, but a sunny one too for this Sunday. Bank holiday Monday is looking typically unsettled with wet and windy conditions. So for today, it starts off fine, much like yesterday morning. We will see lots of sunshine out there, mainly dry conditions. There are some showers scattered about, though, mainly across northern and eastern parts of the UK and the northwest of England and Wales, some coastal areas of Ireland and Northern Ireland too. But inland parts, dry with sunshine generally. A bit of a frost, maybe some isolated fog patches too, and a chilly morning. Going into this afternoon, cloud bubbles up, showers do as well. So we are seeing sunshine at times, but also some showers that will be slow moving because of the light winds. They could be quite prolonged in places. They could be actually quite heavy with the risk of hail and thunder too, and maybe even some wintry outbreaks across the Scottish mountains and perhaps for northern parts of England over the high ground. It is slightly warmer than it was yesterday, though. Temperatures look to be reaching highs of around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius, possibly 13 to 15 locally across parts of the south. And then as we head into tonight, the showers will tend to fade away. It will be a mainly dry and clear night for central and eastern areas where we're likely to have a frost again. It will be chilly with some mist and fog patches. Further west, though, will be cloudier, less cold, but wetter and windier, with rain through tomorrow, as well as strong winds spreading eastwards across the UK and Ireland.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Still to come, we have all the sport with Jackie. What have you got coming up?
Well, it might not be the best day to be a Manchester United fan. I'm just saying. If they lose today, not only will they have been beaten by their old rivals Liverpool, but they'll also hand the Premier League title to neighbours Manchester City. Also on the way, heavyweights Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora battle through a gruelling 12-round classic which splits the judges' decisions. And an agonising fall for Britain's Geraint Thomas, just metres from the winning line.
Our job is to tell the truth. This is a forgotten front line. They are dying here. Here it comes. Cut.
Boy, have we got some interesting ways of showing you what's going on.
Their message to us, get ready.
Nothing like apocalypse.
Instructing you to stay at home.
I can't believe we did that.
It's pretty special, isn't it?
So this was Mr. Prowse's own personal mask. It wasn't sadly used in the film. This was one that was given to him in the early 1980s, and he used it for kind of fan conventions, bits of fun, interviews, etc. So it's kind of as close as you can get to having Darth Vader's mask without it actually being from the film. There's lots of really nice personal items, and some of the kind of the most charming ones are those that were given to him from his co-stars. So we've got a lovely signed picture of Mark Hamill that says, "From your loving son." Similar with Carrie Fisher, Sir Alec Guinness, Peter Cushing. We've got letters from Peter Cushing. It's kind of a really unique and very charming collection of stuff. The sale estimate is kind of around £80,000 to £100,000. We've broken nearly every record for our own auction house in terms of the number of bids, the speed of bids. As I've been saying all week, the sky is the limit.
Jack is here to tell us about the big showdown, the rivalry in football. Starting with that, aren't you?
Yeah, well, you know, will Man City win the title today? They're going to win at some point. Is it going to be today? Possibly. Did the two boxers stop fighting about who would go into the ring first? And Mum sorted it out.
No.
Yeah. And why did Geraint Thomas fall off his bike? So many questions. I've got a few of the answers right now.
This sports bulletin is brought to you by Vitality, committed to getting 100 million people 20% more active by 2025.
Well, the best place it feels like to start is the Spurs game and your performance and the result in general. How much did the club need that?
To get the revenge from the previous game that we had against them, because we still had the inside. Everyone had the inside, you know, losing like that at home. And just for the point as well, with the result that happened in the weekend, that was good for us. It was very important.
There was a really nice moment after the game that the cameras picked up, you and Ollie having a little chat. It looked like he was complimenting you on a part of your game. What's your relationship like with Ollie at the moment?
Well, he wasn't complimenting me. He was telling me that I should have scored. But no, obviously we have a very good relation. He understands me. He put me on the pitch. He trusts me to play or in the middle or on the left, and that's all the player needs.
There was a really interesting, what we'd call like a war of words between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Jose Mourinho before the game and after the game, and it was amusing for us to watch. What did you guys make of it as players?
I don't know what happened. I'm sure Mourinho put something or said something that would the people speak. That's what he does. And we got the result that we wanted. Just Oli knows it, and we enjoyed that. We enjoyed that moment.
What do you think the differences are between Jose Mourinho's style of management and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's style of management?
What I have now with Oli is different because he wouldn't go against the players. Maybe he doesn't put them, or it's not like you put them on the side and they don't exist anymore. And I think that's the difference between Mourinho and Ole. Because once I had a great relationship with Mourinho, everybody see that, and the next day you don't know what happened. And that's the strange thing that that I had with Mourinho. And I cannot explain to you because even me, I don't know.
Tell us about the role that you play, because when you were bought by Manchester United, it was a very box-to-box midfielder kind of role. You've changed so much, and at the weekend we saw you play far right, in the front three. What do you prefer?
I like to do, obviously, attacking. I like to be in the box. I like to be decisive for my team. If I can do both, I will do it. I like to defend as well, to recover ball and get to the box. I just like to be free and play my football.
For you to perform at your best, do you feel that you need a consistent role, or are you happy to float around and do whatever it is that Ollie wants you to do?
I think for every player, you know, you always feel you need to play when you feel comfortable, when you're doing well there, and you carry on, you keep doing it. I think it will be harder, it will be more difficult for someone to be consistent and play well when you change a lot. The manager tells me to be deeper, I will be deeper, I will give my best there. And if I have to be a bit higher in the pocket, I will do the same and be there, try to be in front as well, help the team as much as I can.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in.
We're all in to kick it out.
Partnering to end racism in sport.
Brian Swanson and Carve Solical on set with me to discuss if the Super League is indeed dead, and if not, what's going to happen next. And we'll have more on the discussion about whether fans' ownership is a model for the future of English football. But next, we're going to hear from the England captain Harry Kane, who has praised fans for protesting against the Super League. Supporters turned up outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before the game in the Premier League against Southampton on Wednesday to voice their objections to the proposals, as well as Chairman Daniel Levy and owners Enoch.
I was surprised, I'll be totally honest. Come in that morning and obviously found out probably 5-10 minutes before it was announced. So yeah, surprised, because obviously a lot of the focus was on the Carabao Cup final and preparing for that. But look, it's football. I've been here now where there's a couple managers been sacked, and I mean, as a
Committed to getting 100 million people 20% more active by 2025.
You're watching Sky News Breakfast. Coming up. I'll be speaking to a conservationist about the great migration of Nightingale songbirds. Welcome back to Sky News Breakfast. Israel is holding a national day of mourning after a deadly stampede killed 45 ultra-Orthodox Jews at Friday's Lag BaOmer festival near Mount Meron. The bodies of 32 of the worshippers have been identified, but the process was suspended to allow for Sabbath, the Jewish day of rest. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised an investigation into the cause of the stampede. Well, let's cross now to Tel Aviv in Israel and speak to I24 News Middle East reporter Alec Pollard. Alec, tell us exactly what will be happening today.
Good morning, Gillian. So, first of all, in the early hours of the morning, the last of the victims were identified at the main Forensic Institute, which means there are funerals which are ongoing now as we speak. There is also a national day of mourning, as you mentioned. All the flags are flying at half-mast on official buildings throughout the country. Many events have been canceled. All of the Sunday football matches that were planned have been canceled. So much of the country coming to a standstill to mourn the dead. And as this day progresses and the week progresses, we will see people also progress from the stage of mourning to the stage of asking some very serious questions and pointing the finger of blame in various directions. You mentioned the national inquiry, which is likely coming, but it should be mentioned that there have been several state comptroller reports over the years, going back over a decade, 2008, 2011, in which it was said very clearly that this small pilgrimage site simply cannot accommodate 100,000, 200,000 people. It was a disaster waiting to happen. The writing was on the wall, written clearly in very large letters, and everyone chose to look the other way, also because there are several different authorities in charge of administering that site. It's a very complicated situation, but certainly the writing was on the wall, and the question now is if people will learn the lesson and if this disaster will be averted next time to make sure that it doesn't happen again, if the necessary precautions are put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Alec, thank you very much for that. An important event in the calendar for bird lovers now, as thousands of Nightingale songbirds have made the journey from Africa to southern parts of the UK. As the name suggests, they like to sing a number or two, and one conservationist has set up a series of events to celebrate the birds. Let's take a quick listen to the Nightingale song. Well, joining me now from Hyneham Woods in Gloucestershire is conservationist and author of The Nightingale, Notes on a Songbird, Sam Lee. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. It's beautiful listening to the sounds of the nightingale there, but I have to say I'm quite ignorant. I wouldn't know the difference between a nightingale and, I don't know, a lark. What is specific about the sound from the nightingale that you particularly like?
Well, as the name suggests, the nightingale is a bird that likes to sing at night, and one of the few birds that sings throughout the night for this next 6 weeks and through to the end of May, using their incredible vocal range, huge dynamic, 1,500 different sounds, one of the most virtuosic of all birds. And they sing through the night to try and find their mate. And it's an exquisite experience in these spring nights to sit and listen and play music indeed and gather people to experience this, one of nature's great phenomenons.
Tell us about the events that you're running to celebrate the nightingale.
Yeah, so the invitation is for audiences to come and join me here in these woods. I'm actually in Sussex this time for the next month. And people are treated to an amazing experience of being in these very precious woods, having dinner and food and stories all about the mythology and folklore and history of the nightingale and cultures across the Northern Hemisphere. And then with musicians, we head down into their habitat, where we go into this musical collaboration and we play instruments and I sing with the birds who sing back incredibly. They have this wonderful correspondence with human musicians.
How does that work? Because doesn't your human singing put them off or distract them or silence them? Do they actually sing with you?
This is the incredible thing. They're in a very amazing place of being firstly trying to find a mate. They're calling out, but they're also very collaborative with each other. And thus what we find is that when humans are there in a very sensitive way playing music, as has been done across the Northern Hemisphere for thousands of years, the playing of music and the telling of tales with the birds, they're completely fearless and will enter into this amazing, playful kind of collaboration, improvisation, where they'll recognize your music and start to sing in key. And you go into this very, very special human bird sort of conversation. There's nothing like it on Earth as an experience goes.
That is amazing. I was totally unaware of that. So they'll actually join in on the key that you're singing in.
Yes, indeed. We work with violinists, cellists, clarinetists, singers, mostly instrumentalists and singers, but from all different musical traditions. And the birds are just so amazingly accepting and dare I say, kind of like allowing of this. We're not affecting their breeding at all. It's having, actually, our presence here has had great impact on the population. So it's a very sensitive and very thoughtful and romantic affair, dare I say.
Sounds wonderful, so interesting. Sam Lee, thank you so much for speaking to us, and happy International Dawn Chorus Day as well, which it is today.
And
thank
to you.
Let's catch up on the weather now, see if it's great weather for nightingales. Who knows?
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. Well, it's another day of sunny spells and showers, and it is going to be a rather wet and windy bank holiday Monday as well. So typical bank holiday weekend conditions. Starting off fine this morning, like it was yesterday morning and the day before that. It is chilly though, and there are frosty conditions out there, and there are some showers scattered about, mainly across coastal areas of Ireland, Northern Ireland, the northwest of England and Wales, and the east of the UK as well. But generally, it's fine. But then as we head into this afternoon, cloud amounts will bubble up. There will still be some bright or sunny spells, but where it gets quite cloudy, there will be some showers about, and some of them are likely to be quite slow moving because the winds are light. And so they might be quite prolonged if you get caught out in one. And they could be quite heavy and thundery with the risk of hail, maybe even some winteriness across the tops of the Scottish mountains. It's actually feeling slightly warmer compared to yesterday. This time of the year, the sun is fairly strong. So we are looking at temperatures widely of around highs of 11 to 12 degrees Celsius, possibly 13 to 15 down towards southern areas. So not too bad. Into tonight, the showers will fade away. Then tomorrow, wet and windy from the west.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It's 7:43. You're watching Sky News Breakfast. After the break, we'll take you through the stories making this morning's newspapers with Julie Bindle and Esther Kraken. Do stay with us.
Should protect our heritage. Unfortunately, it will become part of Azerbaijan.
This monastery is under the protection for now, the next 5 years at least, of Russian peacekeepers. I'm Diana Magny and I'm Sky's Russia correspondent, based here in Moscow. I witnessed the despair of the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh who were digging up the soil of their dead relatives. It's Armenians who've abandoned these villages now. Quite what their strategy is, I'm not sure, but they have made some arrests already today.
They can't kill everyone, they can't shoot everyone, they can't arrest everybody.
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world. I mean, this clearly says, I love Hitler. Are you saying that doesn't say Hitler? Russia insists that its military build-up in the Arctic is purely defensive.
For the early risers.
As we examine the story beyond the headline.
For the knowledge seekers.
Welcome to Divided States.
For the straight talkers. The curious and the ones who want to be entertained.
Backstage, Sky News' entertainment podcast.
For wherever you are.
Welcome to Sophy Ridge on Sunday podcast.
For the ones who want to know more.
Welcome to the All Out Politics podcast.
For the listeners.
From Sky News Storycast.
Sky News Podcasts. Listen and subscribe for free.
Did you know allergies affect almost 50% of the UK population, particularly pollen and dust? The Pollen Reports, sponsored by Philips Connected Air Purifiers.
Much like the last couple of days, today will be another day of sunny spells and showers after a mainly dry and fine start. Some of the showers will be heavy and thundery with the risk of hail, but it'll feel slightly warmer than recently. So although it'll be a showery day, it'll still feel mild in any sunshine. Therefore, pollen levels will be moderate for most places again. Tree pollen is airborne at the moment, a mixture of birch, oak and ash, but also plain pollen in some cities, and spores will increase temporarily after any rain.
The Pollen Reports, sponsored by Philips Connected Air Purifiers.
With us now to take us through the newspapers, journalist and feminist campaigner Julie Bindel and the writer and political commentator Esther Krakow. Welcome back to you both. Let's start with the Telegraph front page, Sunday Telegraph, Esther, and this story about home testing possibly replacing the 10-day self-isolation. These are the trials that are soon to be starting.
Yeah, so it's part of the plan to move us out of, the complete lockdown mode that we've been in for the last year. Instead of, 10 days of isolation, if you leave the country or if you are at risk of coming into contact with COVID, you can have the at-home test kits. That's something that they're testing at the moment. So just to get people out and about and moving, so we're not isolated for a week and a half if we have a risk of being exposed to the virus. I think it's one of the key measures that we should be taking instead of, telling people to basically have these mini lockdown of their lives for 10 days to stop the risk of transferring the virus onto other people, which is great. It's one of the things that I feel is most optimistic as well. All these trials that are being taking place, especially even the one that they had in Liverpool with a bunch of youngsters meeting up, I think about 6,000 young kids that met up in a kind of a nightclub setting to try and see about the transmission rate of COVID of people in would be like a normal night out for most young people. So these are the kind of measures that are being taken to, make the country feel a bit more confident as we come out of this lockdown, hopefully by June, which is what is planned at the moment.
Yes, you refer to the 3,000 people that attended the rave in Liverpool that had to test before and afterwards. We wait to see the results of that, whether that has been a success. Let's move on to the Mail online, Julian. This is Matt Hancock reopening the debate on legalising assisted suicide.
Yes, there was a survey of GPs across Britain last year, and 50% were in support, they say, of assisting people to die who have terminal illness. And in fact, Matt Hancock himself, who was always against assisted suicide, changed his mind after talking with Sir Paul Cosford, who was the public health director, who died after living with cancer for 4 years. And of course, this debate has been raging across the world, actually, in many countries for a number of years. Similar laws have been passed in countries such as Switzerland and Belgium, Holland, parts of the US and Australia. And we know that there is the Dignitas clinic in Switzerland where people can actually go, and this is something that they can ask their friends and family to assist them with dying at Dignitas, whereas what we're looking at the moment, what Matt Hancock wants to look at, is doctor-assisted dying. But actually at Dignitas, and this is one of the things that concerns me, a large percentage, I think it's 40%, if not more, of people that choose to die at Dignitas don't have a terminal illness, which means that this could be other issues, depression, mental illness, etc. And I'm concerned that this is a bit of a quick fix issue, and that if we actually pass this law, two things concern me. One is coercion and abuse from carer to the person with the illness. They could well be pressurised into taking their lives. There have been some criminal charges against carers who have pushed people into taking their lives, but also that this might lead to a situation where it's far more normalised for people to be left struggling with terrible illnesses such as depression, and that this is a way out as opposed to strengthening our mental health programme. But at the moment, as I say, it's just a consideration, and this is something that will run and run as an issue. At the moment, people can get 14 years in prison for assisting someone to die, and of course that would apply to a doctor that did this outside of the regulation.
Yeah, and just worth saying that anyone seeking help can contact Samaritans Free on 116123. Let's move on to the Mail. And the picture there of a sweat-soaked doctor in India. This article looking at the COVID situation in India and through the perspective of the health workers, the doctors, and their workload and what they're having to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, over the last couple of weeks, we've noticed a huge surge in COVID cases in India, in particular the sort of Indian variant of the virus, and it's just been really sort of shocking for the world to see. I mean, this is just a clear example of a doctor that's been in PPE for hours at a time trying to save these patients. There have been pictures of people being dumped on the side of the road. It's just awful, like an apocalyptic situation, and it kind of highlights a lot of the failings of the local Indian health system, but it also just shows how badly this virus can get out of control if it's not managed properly. And it is a really tragic situation what's going on in India right now. There are obviously calls for charities to send over help and any sort of assistance that we can, but it's a really awful situation.
Yes, and the country asking, excuse me, for international help. They asked the UK to help it build its own Nightingale hospitals, a facility that actually, in the end, we didn't use here, did we?
Yeah, we did. I mean, it wasn't the situation in the UK was this bad, but I think the pictures that we've been seeing and the kind of footage that's come out of the media is a bit more graphic in India. Obviously, levels of development are different, so how things are handled there is clearly there is a stark difference. But yes, it is quite an untenable situation at the moment.
Julie, to the Telegraph, and this, the follow-up on the story, the tragedy in Israel with 45 people losing their lives at the festival, the Lag Bomer festival. The Prime Minister launching an investigation and a day of mourning now, but criticisms that warnings perhaps about the numbers of people that were likely to be in attendance, those warnings being ignored.
Yes, in 2016, a police report warned of overcrowding. There were 100,000 ultra-Orthodox Jews at this pilgrimage. The venue was far too small for this, and in fact, I think this is similar to Hillsborough, where what some reports are saying is that on the actual night of the disaster, the police had set up a barrier, which then prevented a number of people leaving. In fact, 2 members of my family were there and they were close to the front, but before the disaster happened, and they'd got to the back of the venue and managed to escape, but it took them 3 hours to get out. And they were saying, the police have a lot to answer for, but until we see the results of the investigation, it's really difficult to know who is to blame. Of course, it looks like this might be the fault of a number of different bodies, but certainly the barrier that was set up by police on the night looks as if, as I say, it could be analogous with the Hillsborough disaster. But it's terrible. I mean, the PM is saying that this is the country's worst disaster to date. And of course, we'll be hearing much more about this as time goes on. People have travelled from Canada, from the US, from Europe, from all over.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm sure that...
And as we say, the investigation is being launched. Thank you both for taking us through the papers this morning, Julie and Esther. Good to see you. Thank you so much.